Kellen Moore is finally a head coach. His name has been thrown around for openings before, and now it's his time. And he's inheriting a pretty big mess with the Saints. There are 5 players over 30 years old set to take up a ton of cap space. Demario Davis, Cameron Jordan, Taysom Hill, Derek Carr, and Tyrann Mathieu. A contract rework for Ryan Ramczyk to retire will help clear up $16.7 million in cap space, but it's still pretty bad. Moore already has some big decisions to make, specifically with Derek Carr. It's been rough for the Saints since Sean Payton retired and then was traded to the Broncos. New Orleans has 2 9-8 seasons and 2 losing seasons. Dennis Allen, simply put, flopped at head coach, and now it's up to Kellen Moore to try to turn around the Saints. Moore has had a lot of success as a coordinator. He was in Dallas for a while and just won a Super Bowl as the Eagles offensive coordinator. There's no doubt that Kellen Moore is well deserving of a head coach job, but fixing the Saints won't exactly be easy. Kellen Moore has football in his blood. He grew up in Prosser, Washington, where he went to high school and played for his dad, Tom Moore, who won 4 state titles at Prosser in 23 seasons. Kellen went to practices as a kid and eventually was a star for the Mustangs, where he lettered in football and basketball for 3 years. He set Washington State career records with 787 completions and 173 touchdown passes, and set state single season records for completions, yards, and touchdown passes. He threw for 11,367 yards and only 34 interceptions in high school. He got Prosser to the state semifinals as a senior. It was named the State Gatorade Player of the Year. Kellen decided to play at Boise State, and 2 years later, his dad stepped down as the head coach at Prosser to watch him and his brother Kirby Moore play at Boise State. Kirby Moore was a 4-year starter at Prosser and was the Washington 2A Player of the Year as a senior after he had 131 receptions for 2,126 yards and 34 touchdowns. For the Mustangs, he caught 304 passes for 4,909 yards and a national high school record 95 touchdowns. Kirby then followed his brother Kellen to Boise State, where he spent 5 seasons. As a redshirt junior, he was the second leading receiver for the Broncos with 36 receptions, 368 yards, and a single touchdown. For his career there, Kirby had 115 receptions for 1,137 yards and 6 total touchdowns. He then got into coaching and currently serves as the offensive coordinator at Missouri. Kellen Moore was a true star at Boise State and a rare lefty. After he redshirted his true freshman year, he led the Broncos to an undefeated regular season and a WAC championship. He was the WAC Freshman of the Year after he had 3,486 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. In 2009, he threw for a school record 39 touchdowns with only 3 interceptions and 3,536 yards. Boise State went 14-0, and Moore finished 7th in Heisman Trophy voting. But the next season was even better. Moore finished 4th in Heisman voting. It was the WAC Offensive Player of the Year and a first-team All-American for the 2nd straight season after he had 3,845 yards, 39 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions as Boise State went 12-1. As a senior, Moore passed for 3,800 yards, 43 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions as the Broncos went 12-1 again. Despite his success in college, Kellen Moore went undrafted at the 2012 NFL Draft. There were a lot of doubts surrounding his abilities as a pro, especially after he measured in just shy of 6 feet. He was signed by the Lions and spent 3 seasons there before spending 3 seasons with the Cowboys. 2015 was the lone season that he got on the field. He appeared in relief just once and got 2 starts, losing both. He passed for 779 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. He missed 2016 after he suffered a fractured fibula, and after spending some time on the practice squad in 2017, he retired from the NFL and stayed in Dallas and took up coaching. Kellen Moore was the Cowboys quarterbacks coach for 1 season before he became the offensive coordinator. He was the OC for 4 years and stayed in the role when Jason Garrett was replaced by Mike McCarthy. Moore had a top 6 scoring offense 3 times, including a number 1 scoring offense in 2021. 2020 was the outlier fire when Dak Prescott fractured his ankle in week 5, and after Dallas fell short in the playoffs again in 2023, Moore and the Cowboys parted ways. He was hired to be the Chargers offensive coordinator soon after, and they had the number 21 scoring offense, and Brandon Staley was fired during the season. He was then hired to be the Eagles offensive coordinator under Nick Sirianni. Philadelphia had the number 8 scoring offense, number 2 rushing offense, en route to winning the Super Bowl. And it's safe to say that it earned Moore a head coaching gig with the Saints. There's no doubt in my mind that Kellen Moore is a great coordinator. If anything, really the culprit of his firings in the past have been him being the scapegoat. Obviously, he was good in Dallas, and then he went to Philly, which, to be fair, did have one of the most stacked rosters in the NFL, but still, he went on and won a Super Bowl. This is a guy who is good at his job. Now, with that being said, being a good coordinator and being a good head coach are very different things, and we've seen what Moore can do as a coordinator, but this is our opportunity of seeing what he can do at the biggest stage of his career. The Saints are a shit show. I mean, it really is no secret why they took the longest to find their head coach. Maybe it was because they were locked in on Kellen Moore the entire time, or maybe it's because nobody wanted to deal with the shit show that is the New Orleans Saints. Cap room is an absolute mess. Roster is an absolute mess. We don't know what's going to happen at quarterback. Derek Carr wants to not take a pay cut because he still thinks he's like that, even though he's really not. It's going to be very interesting to see what Kellen Moore can do with this team. I have tremendous faith in him as an offensive play caller, so the offense could theoretically get turned around if they can find their quarterback of the future, because frankly, that's where I think it starts. I don't think Derek Carr is a long-term solution. Maybe he sticks around for another year, I'm not sure, but that's going to be Kellen Moore's job day one, essentially, to figure out what to do at quarterback, because that's where the offense starts, and the offense was not good, with or without Carr, really. I'm excited to see Kellen Moore get a shot as a head coach. I'm just not so sure it's going to go so great. Not because I don't believe in Kellen Moore, but because I don't really believe in the Saints. Dennis Allen was hired to be the Saints head coach in 2022 after serving 7 seasons as the defensive coordinator under Sean Payton. It wasn't his first head coaching gig though. Allen was previously the head coach for the Raiders for 3 seasons and was fired during the 2014 season. He went 8-28 during his time there. And when Payton retired in 2022, Allen was promoted to be the new head coach. Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston were the Saints quarterbacks at the time, and New Orleans went 7-10. Luckily, some of the quarterback confusion was eliminated after signing Derek Carr to a 4-year, $150 million contract, and he started in every game in 2023 en route to a 9-8 season. He ended up missing some time due to an injury last season, and it wasn't pretty when Carr was out. Allen was fired after just a 2-7 start, and special teams coordinator Darren Rizzi was named the interim. The Saints went a disappointing 5-12. Carr was 5-5, Spencer Rattler went 0-6 in his starts, and Jake Haener lost his only start. And now Dennis Allen is the Bears defensive coordinator. Dennis Allen was frankly a shit show in New Orleans. He got hired based off of technicalities. Obviously, he was in New Orleans for a while, so it just made sense to make him the successor, but it just didn't work out. Yes, they had 2 winning seasons, but they never really got above the 9-8 threshold. The team really didn't progress under Dennis Allen, and that's the biggest reasoning for his firing. It just wasn't great under him. Dennis Allen is now in the same type of category as a guy like Josh McDaniels, who's had multiple chances to be an NFL head coach and really flopped both times. Now, I will say his time with the Saints went much better than his time with the Raiders, because if it didn't, I'd be pretty damn concerned. But even then, man, it just wasn't great. Dennis Allen had to go, they had to move, and really this team is in desperate need of just a full rebuild. But getting Kellen Moore was step 1 in the right direction of moving on to a new era for the New Orleans Saints.